Just a little bit off. Hi, Zach.
Howdy.
This is a fun one, huh?
Is this the Cars?
Yes, it is.
Woohoo! Got one.
Only took 12 episodes to get caught up.
Well, I've been sitting here at our Amsterdam Tavern for a little while. Got here a little early today. And the bartender is playing quite a bit of punk music.
Yeah, you know, it's funny, man. This place is kind of like a Jekyll and Hyde kind of bar.
Yeah.
They make all their money before noon as opposed to after midnight. The music during the day is not Keishi classic sing-alongs. It's punk rock. Get out of my way.
It's punk rock, and the first song, I don't know what it was, but a girl was singing would be a stretch for what was happening here. And a lot of screaming, and then weird laughing in the middle. It was I wasn't used to that.
Well, you know what? What day of the week is it? Because
I'm Thursday.
It's Thursday. It is before 4 p.m. You know, if she's singing it on a Thursday before 4, pre-happy hour.
No. This was the song.
Oh,
this wasn't a patron. This was...
See, down here on South Morganford, I was assuming it was a patron singing along poorly.
Now, that could be the case at some point. But no, this was the actual artist that was supposedly leading the band. And it was...
Well, probably won awards in some obscure category at some point.
Yeah, it was different.
Well, we're down here at Amsterdam Tavern. It is the mecca of soccer pubs in not only St. Louis, not only the Midwest, but probably in the Northern Hemisphere. Guarantee there's not one of these in Kansas City.
Not that I'm aware of, no.
No. These guys are great. And I'm looking around, and our other friends, Urban Chestnut, looks like their new 12-ounce product is being
they've got
featured.
the Wally's beer.
They got the Wally's beer.
Oh.
I just noticed that, too. So I think after our warm-up cocktail...
Heck yes.
I think there's a Wally's 12-ounce lager coming our way.
I like that. So speaking of, I've mentioned my cousin's brewery up in Detroit, Dog and Pony Show.
Dog and Pony Show?
They are actually working with Bally Sports and I think the Tigers, and they have a 6-ounce beer that they're promoting. It literally looks like a baseball.
Yeah.
Like the can itself is white with the red stitches, and they're calling them shorties. And it's a cool promotion with it.
What if they came up with a meatball concept, like a weird shaped meatball design on it for Mom Spaghetti?
I'll talk to Kyle and
all
Aaron
I want,
and Josh.
8 cents per can.
Yeah, and I think that's a great idea.
So we've been on quite the run lately. We were in the dog days of summer. Vacations got in the way, a little spread out. Guests were all spread out. But we are sitting with today's guest. This will be the third in 24 hours.
That's right.
And we'll be spreading these out when we send them out to you guys, the beloved public. We've got a whole lot of them coming up next week. The inbound phone calls, the inbound interest has just been far exceeding expectations. So what this is a PSA. This is a thank you card. This is a hallmark moment from the Soccer Dad Pod to you, the listener. We are extremely grateful for the support. All we ask, because none of you have ever found the actual Venmo code on our website to send us beer money. So just take the link. The link is like a single click. A second click is send, and then you type in a friend that might like our idiocracy.
Yeah.
And that's it. 3 clicks.
Well, I think we also need to apologize. We've gotten several emails on the request for the tickets.
New ones.
And I think what we need to do is put a date on it.
Okay.
When we're gonna draw these, and then we'll make some sort of live announcement on the winner. And so maybe offline we'll commit to a date, and then we'll publish that, and then that way people know, hey, get your emails in by this date. But those that have submitted emails, please know we have received them all.
Okay.
I'm working on a
So here's
response there too.
Here's my thought. Here's my game plan. This is what I've been putting out there. Roughly August 10th, I believe, is a Friday. That to me will be the day, or that might be a Monday. I don't
August
know.
10th is a Thursday.
So I was close.
Yeah,
The game's on the 20th, correct?
correct.
Okay. By the 10th, we will draw the name, and then we'll make a bunch of social media posts announcing the winner.
Perfect.
So this episode will come out well before that. So this is pre-warning. All you got to do, soccerdadpod at gaslightstl.com. Shoot us a note. Tell us which episode you liked and what you liked about it. And you automatically are qualified to win 4 tickets, compliments of the Pinnacle Loan Group right down here
Right.
on the hill. Bill and Chris. We really appreciate their support, and they're offering up these tickets to one of our listeners. So thank you, fellas. Also, Crescent Plumbing, again, helping save marriages all across the Midwest and beyond by making the plumbing fixture purchase renovation process easier.
And, I think the big thing, you asked me this before about using just different
A third
tactics.
part, yeah.
The one thing I really wanted and I didn't get was a pot filler.
Oh,
And I can tell you I'm glad I didn't, I think. Because
Yep.
I've heard a lot of horror stories about those just kind of...
well, you have children, and children don't ever turn things all the way off.
Right.
So start there. So yeah, thank you to those guys, which brings me to the pinnacle points of the
Yes.
day. There's just a lot / neutral news going on right now.
Yeah.
Nothing crazy. Like Kim Jong-un is not blowing anything up. We don't have any rushes on our government. We don't have... there's no solar flares heading our way, other than the
Well,
fact
the foreign
that
minister of Russia is in North Korea. That's a little disturbing. But that's a whole other topic for different kind of, podcast.
Oh, I'm pretty sure they have a lot in common. It's probably he's bringing him maybe Pete. Can you imagine Peter from Peter the Great meeting? That would be brilliant.
Oh, that would be fun.
You want to go first? You got a pinnacle point
Yeah,
for
I
me?
think, watching the U.S. women's team, they had their second game of the Women's World Cup against the Netherlands on Wednesday night, and it was not a great showing for our women. I think they battled back, only made one sub.
I have a theory though.
Okay.
Beyond they just quote didn't look good.
Yeah.
I think a big part of it is across the board, everybody else is catching up fast.
I agree with that. Yeah, I don't think it was necessarily a negative for the women. I just do think it's a positive across the board, like you're saying. I just the dominance that we've experienced and really pushed for is starting to wane because others are catching up.
Well, so had a friendly squabble on socials regarding this exact topic, and the way I look at it is, U.S. women have been playing the game for all intent and purposes. Most people say for roughly 50 years. 50 years ago is when youth
Title IX.
Yeah, Title IX as well. So they've been doing it for a long time. Most of the European powerhouses, their women's youth girl development started 20, 25 years after, if not more. And not even mentioning South and Central America, which that was a no-no up until 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
The advantage that they have, here's my theory, is once they have bought into it and started supporting it, they already have the infrastructure, the mindset, the systems, the community involvement. It's all in place.
Well, and also what's so funny and interesting about the women's game versus the men's is that these countries that are now competing at a higher level, where their girls are going to train?
College here.
College in the United States. So, or youth programs.
Yeah.
There's a 16-year-old who started for, I think it was South Korea. She has lived in the U.S. since she was a month old and trained her whole life here in the U.S. And there's several other expats like that. And I think it's just great for the game to have that kind of diplomacy and recognition that we're so used to Europe being that for us on the men's side. But I think it's great. So, yeah, nothing against how things went. It was interesting to see Lindsey Horan and her actual club teammate.
Yeah. Well, you saw the photo afterwards. They were like,
they were hugging it out. They were not hugging it out on the pitch though.
No.
No love
like
lost
that.
there.
I like a little piss and vinegar.
It reminded me of that episode of Ted Lasso when.
Is that in season 3? Because
I haven't. I can't say anything else.
No burners, and plus some of our listeners, they're not there yet either.
But those listeners that are cool enough that have followed along know exactly what I'm talking about.
They knew where you were going, and they might be screaming it into their car right now.
Oh yeah.
But too bad, so sad. We're not going to get it on air.
Zorro and Danny. That's all I'm saying.
My pinnacle point of the day is I'm going off the rails, and this is a personal pinnacle point. Growing up, starting my semi-professional drinking career as a college student, loved cheap beer, got into a little bit of money, decided stouts were good and cool, right? Everybody like, oh, look at that guy drinking Guinness, right? Then went through that phase. I think we all did. Mm-hmm. The IPA 17 flavor fruits and bong water mixed together.
I still partake.
And then I kind of reverted back to cold and yellow. This is I don't know, post 40, 42, somewhere in there. It was like, I'm done. Flavor palette is shot. Just give me yellow beer.
Yep.
Now, the consistent common denominator or sidecar, so to speak, was just whiskey. Simple whiskey. Irish whiskey in particular.
Yeah, you typically prefer the Irish.
Something has happened to my taste buds, to my consumption habits.
Oh, no.
What once was, let's go in the alley and destroy ourselves, is now my best friend, and that is tequila.
Yes, I see your...
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't have an answer for that, and I'm just really curious, because is it kind of the age that we're all at where, science says that every 7 years your taste buds change?
I think so. I think there's a big part of that I think we have less taste buds, so we need more. So maybe the stimulation.
Maybe the whiskey burnt them off over time, and now I can stomach the.
I think so.
I don't know. It was just.
I like tequila, and a good tequila, sipping tequila, not one you're just shooting.
Yes.
Is to me
less
can
bloat.
be as crafty as bourbon or a good Irish whiskey.
Less bloat.
Oh yeah.
Just all around. What was once I'm going to chew on a telephone pole kind of reaction is now like, wow, look at the sunset.
Well, and for those that like to partake like we do, a solid drink with tequila and soda water, or tequila and soda, or tequila and something else, you're going to sip on that a lot longer than your beer that you don't want to get warm.
Yes. So I guess what I'm saying is next time you're in the city, come down to Amsterdam Tavern, the soccer mecca pub in the Northern Hemisphere. Grab yourself a nice white tequila on the rocks, a little lime. Enjoy your game.
Yeah.
It's just a good vibe, man.
Agreed.
I've noticed in here, too, there's more swag, if it's possible.
Yeah, there's not any wall space left.
It's really kind of incredible.
Starting to cover things up.
Yeah, and I've noticed that the Kansas City scarves are no more. I had nothing to do with it.
No, nothing.
That's actually my pinnacle point 3 of the day. I realized that I had been ignoring Kansas City slams for a while.
Oh, well.
So I woke up today reinvigorated and just charged up a little bit.
Sure.
Maybe it's the tequila. I don't know.
Could be.
But Kansas City is officially back in the crosshairs. You cool with that?
Down. Yeah.
All right. Bill, Chris, thank you. Pinnacle Loan Group. You need help, check out your rates. Need a refi, buying new, renovating, or if you're getting a pool like Jared Bertrand.
Yeah.
It's so simple, he did it.
That's right. Flippin' hammer.
It was a flippin' hammer of a pool. Flippin' hammer of the process. So check those guys out. And if you do the reno, again, Crescent Plumbing Supply, check them out as well. They're going to help you. They're going to help you stay on budget and make it look cool. Our guest today is another one of those. We talked in the previous episode about St. Louis's need for an altered Mount Rushmore of soccer faces. This is another one of those. I mean, we were just talking a second ago. When you talk about this individual, some of the players that he played against, marked, competed against were You might have heard of these. One is Pele, George Best, Johan Cruyff, Franz Beckenbauer, Shanalia, Carlos Alberto, and Gerd Muller.
And what's really cool about our upcoming guests, and you know who it is because you can read, he actually, I think, held and still has the record for the most minutes and games played by an American.
We're going to find out.
Yeah.
On the other side of this spot.
Yep. Let's do it.
Thank you, everybody. Again, 3 clicks. Pick your episode, hit share, send it to a friend. We will thank you.
And then send us an email.
And an email. And we're going to roll out. We're going to be right back with our guest. Talk to you soon.
Yo, Jared here. Remember the pool pandemic of 2021? I was infected. I needed my own oversized oasis in Wentzville. I needed a simple solution to pay for it. So I reached out to my favorite undefeated CBC freshman standouts, Bill and Chris at The Pinnacle Loans. Long story short, I have my pool. It's a flipping hammer. The loan process with those guys was so simple. Even I did it. Now, every time I get in my pool to drink ice cold beer, I can thank the team over at thepinnacleloans.com. That's thepinnacleloans.com. 20-0 as freshmen? Really?
Some people call me the space cowboy.
That was an easy one.
I like this one. Yeah. I know this one.
This is one, the amount of miles that we put on lately chasing our kids around.
Oh, yeah.
I really have dug deep back into my dad's vinyl collection,
Yeah.
really. Steve Miller Band, our boy up in Detroit, Bob Seger.
Yeah.
Listen, a lot of Bob Seger. This one's just as fun.
Well, they become such classics, you know. It's not even, people don't even realize that this was,
No.
you know.
My graduating son from SLU High, when he hears that first little note, he's like, yeah, Steve Miller.
Yeah.
Like, it's generationally iconic. We're obviously back, people. Thank you for holding on through Jared and my amazing commercials. I'm going to turn it over to Zach for the intro here, because this is going to be a fun one. So, Zach, without further ado, the mic is to you.
Yeah, thanks, JB. So we've got with us a legend, and he's in that pantheon with a lot of the guests we've had on the show over the last couple months. And I actually have an interesting story because I met this person years ago before I knew he was a legend. And it wasn't until I read his business card and saw the pictures in the back that he was a legend.
The business cards themselves are legendary.
They are. And so I'm happy to have Don Droege here with us today. And so, Don, welcome to the show, and thanks for coming out.
Thanks, and thanks for the invite. It should be fun.
Yeah. So if you want to kind of kick us off with, the last 30 years you've been doing something other than soccer, but you had a very illustrious career that started at CBC. Can you take us from CBC up through your first draft?
At CBC, I was lucky enough to have 2 coaches. I had Bob Horgan, who was a legendary coach before Terry Mickler.
Right.
Terry came in my junior year, and I think that was 1972.
Yep.
And took over and made an impact right away. So at Terry at 72 and 73, I had him. From there, I got a scholarship to St. Louis University, which was, at that point, if you get a scholarship to St. Louis University, you went.
You went
because
there.
you knew you had a chance of, winning a national championship. So from CBC there, I went to St. Louis U, and then I got drafted by the Rochester Lancers out of college at St. Louis University.
Let me go a little bit back on that timeline, digging a little bit into the CBC days and maybe even a little prior. I'm going to assume you were a northerner.
Ooh, don't say that.
He's not. I
I'm
should have warned you.
Southside.
Yep. Southsider.
I like that better because I'm an East Sider. So
Yeah. So normally the boundary was Highway 40.
yeah.
So I was in St. Luke's Parish, right near the old CBC.
Okay.
So we were considered Southsiders, and right next to CBC. So
Yeah, right there on Clayton Road.
on Bellevue and Dale.
Okay. Yep.
But the old school was at Clayton Road.
Yeah.
So we were considered Southsiders, the whole time. And the parish that I was from, St. Luke's, had some great athletes, soccer players and others, that came out of there. Tim Logish, that played professionally, and with St. Louis University, probably one of the best left foot to come out of St. Louis. He was from there. And then you had Tim McAvoy, who was a little bit older than us, and he coached us a bit. Tim was from St. Luke's. My brother Bill, he ended up playing professional baseball. My dad was a professional baseball player. So there was a lot of good athletes. And, I grew up a family of 11, and we beat the hell out of each other all the time. So
Well, you had a full squad.
we had a full squad.
11 players. You just take on the whole neighborhood.
And
Did you
and
guys
the
just-
girls were as mean as the...
Did you guys just walk around the neighborhood, 11 of you, and like staring at houses, like, who's up? Come on outside.
Knocking
Let's
on
do
doors.
this.
Actually, St. Luke's didn't have a gym or anything. So my dad, after we broke maybe hundreds of windows at our house playing baseball or soccer or whatever, hockey, he decided to put screens on all the windows and then pave the whole yard. So
Wow.
we didn't have any grass. The backyard was asphalt. We had basketball courts, hockey arenas. We had everything. So after school, everybody would be coming down. We had drinking fountains in the backyard. And
A permanent supply
backyard-
of skinned knees and skinned
Yes.
oh my
elbows.
God.
And no maintenance.
We had padlocks on the refrigerators out in the back rooms near
I love
everybody
it.
just go in and take what they wanted.
So early on, I mean, in your bio, it's really easy to find obviously all your soccer accolades and the years and the teams and everything that you were involved with the game. But there's all these footnotes in regards to baseball. You mentioned just a second ago your brother Bill, who was drafted by the Cubs. Your dad played as well. And a common theme and a common denominator in a lot of the older generation, coming up through the CYC ranks, et cetera, they always talk about multi-sports. You were a multi-sport athlete. What was it about soccer, or when did you know soccer was going to be the hook to take you away from baseball, which sounds like you were pretty good at that as well?
Yeah, I think I was a pretty good player, but out of high school, I did well. I did play down at St. Louis University 1 year with the baseball. At the same time, my brother was playing with the Cubs and doing fabulous. My dad played on the same team or roster with Dizzy Dean, and Bob Feller was his pitcher and all this kind of stuff. So I was sort of maybe pushed. They wanted me to go that way. I don't know if I had that much talent. I think maybe if I would put as much time into baseball as I did soccer, who knows? But the big thing was the years it took. I mean, you go into the minor league system.
Right.
Even if I would have made it at that time, then it could be years back then, because they never brought a young player up at that time. My brother was in AAA for a number of years, led the league, stolen bases, all those type of things. And then he got beamed, and, he was sort of, screwed at that time. But it was, 4 years that he's in the system. And back then in soccer, if you got drafted, it was a one-time shot. Right. You either made the team or you didn't. There weren't any B teams or C teams or any type of thing like that. It was go on with life. So I sort of liked that by, let's see if I can make it and then go from there.
Did Coach Mickler, did Terry have a role in that decision with you? Because that would have been I'm assuming that's your decision-making time, that junior, senior year, especially with SLU coming knocking and offering you the scholarship. Did Coach Mickler have anything to do with that conversation?
Not with that conversation. What Terry did is that when he came in, I was a forward at that time for Horgan. And right off the bat, he didn't like it, and he just says, I'm going to put you as a center back. And I was the type of player that I didn't care, because, which I think that's a lot of players are different that way, but I just wanted to be on the field. So when he put me as a center back, I sort of excelled at that, and really it made me the player that I ended up being. I never would have done it, playing the forward, but as a center back, I was comfortable, and and Terry knows this too, I've said that before, he really made my career by making that move for me. So, anytime that you can get on the field is great. But when I went down to St. Louis University, I went down on a soccer scholarship, nothing to do with baseball.
Yeah.
And they asked me to play baseball when I went down there. So there was never any decision on if you're going to do this or that.
Yeah.
I mean, that was freshman year, then I was done. I still played another 3 years at St. Louis and then was drafted in soccer.
So really, the financial piece made the decision pretty clear. So you had scholarship money for soccer and not scholarship money for baseball, and then you saw your brother kind of going through that process.
100%.
You saw what your dad went through when you were a kid.
Well, it doesn't hurt that you're staring at a university that is top of the pile.
No,
You know?
that also helps.
Well, it was a no-brainer. Really, back then, it was if you got the call, you went and played for St. Louis U.
Well, and we heard this from Mike Sorber in a recent episode that he got to go down to Mexico and play for the Pumas.
Yeah.
In the U.S., most people walking down the street with Mike Sorber wouldn't have known who he was. But he gets off the plane in Mexico City, and he's harangued by 50 reporters. You go to Rochester, which is not the Cosmos, but you guys are pretty big deals back then. And so can you talk a little bit about what that was like to be in those environments at that time? And we'll get into the journeyman side of your career as well. But I'm just curious that those first couple matches when you're playing in the NASL after St. Louis University, can you talk about the difference in the crowd and in the environment?
Well, going up to Rochester is a little bit different than going to anywhere else in the league.
Yeah.
And there was good things and bad things with doing that. And at that point, Don Popovich, I think we all know Pops, was the coach up in Rochester. And the year before, he had just drafted Jim Pollahan, a great player from St. Louis. God rest his soul. He just passed away about 6 months ago of a heart attack. But he drafted Jim, along with Terry Hansen was the general manager at that time. He's also from St. Louis. And so Pops had a really good outcome with Jim Pollahan. So the next year I was drafted, I go up there. They asked me to live with them, so that's how that journey started. But the Rochester, they didn't have any other sports really up there. They did have a minor league baseball team, but you really didn't hear about it. And we were the thing in town, but we were far from being recognized by anybody or any.
Well,
that was not the case. But
I think the Kodak people were pretty big over there,
oh
right?
Oh my God, yeah.
Well,
and then we made some really good strides when we were, my 77 and 78 for Rochester. We made it to the Final Four.
Wow.
We lost to the Cosmos at a packed stadium, which they've never had a packed stadium ever in Rochester. So we did some great things on a team that was on a shoestring budget. I look back now, didn't then, but look back now and I shake my head and say, how did they even put a team on the field? We were very competitive, and I don't know how they did it.
Was there any amount of when you got the offer, when you were drafted, because you go from, you're in St. Louis, you're playing at CBC. I mean, CBC is a powerhouse in its own right. You then go to St. Louis University, which is the number one university in the country, in soccer for years. It is the dynasty school. That is the top of the pile. You get drafted, and it's Rochester, because there's a connotation with that. Anybody that knows the league knows that, when you look at the other cities that are involved in the markets and the players, there's a lot of desirability, then there's less desirability. Were you frustrated at all with the Rochester selection, given kind of the fact that you'd been riding the top of the wave, or did you just see it as, I'm a soccer player, this is my job, that's my team now?
And that's what it was. I mean, I was just happy to get drafted, to be able to go on with my journey and play, professional soccer. And I didn't think twice about being drafted by Rochester. I didn't know a whole lot about them at that time. And back then, you had no power. Once you were drafted, you were, I couldn't say, I'm not going to you, I'm going to go to the Cosmos. That wasn't the case, It was once, and if you said something like that, your career would be over.
Done.
You could have said, I have 10 siblings that will kick your ass.
Well, that could have been done, but no, we had no power. There was no union. There was nothing back then. we actually started the unions, than when we were playing throughout the years. But I was just happy to be up there. Didn't know anything about Rochester whatsoever. Knew then that Popovich, was the coach, and Terry Mickler and Pops were old teammates, so they knew each other somehow. Through playing way back when, and just the opportunity to go up there and try to play. And with Jim Pollahan, paving the way the year before, they did give me a shot at playing, even though it was a wing back and I was a center back. Again, it goes back to Terry Mickler. Just put me on just play. Put me in the goal. I don't care. I just wanted to be on the field.
So I have an interesting question that we've never really asked before, and I was talking to JB about this. I actually do listen to other podcasts. I know, shame on me. But there's there's one out that's called Owned, and it's about sports team owners. And of all the people I know and met in my life, I think you have a really good point on 8 teams in 7 years. Is that right?
8 teams in 7 years.
I would love to get your perspective on just the different feel of the different owners throughout that time. Did you have a relationship with them? Were they engaged? Was it? I'm just very curious about that part of it.
Some of the owners you knew, and some you didn't. Some were, you just didn't know who owned the team at that point.
Yeah.
But there was a squiggly name on the check, and you're like, I think
I got a check sometimes. So in Rochester, we were owned by a couple lawyers, and they were shoestring. It was a shoestring budget. They weren't wealthy people. They loved soccer and just had to, I don't know how they came up with the money every year. And I'm sure we had the lowest payroll of anybody. And all of us back then didn't make a whole lot of money. I mean, my first year, freshman year, or my first rookie year in Rochester, I made $3,000 a year.
Wow.
So we were playing for the love of the game.
Yeah.
And one of the first games that I played was against Pele in the Meadowlands, 75,000 people. And I'm making $3,000 a year, and I'm saying, I don't care.
And he's making $3,000 a half.
Oh, my!
Way more than that.
A lot more than that.
Right.
So it was an incredible experience there. So they were owners that just, I mean, we'd go to dinner and we'd have you could only get one milk or one soda. You couldn't get double, so all the foreigners would get, Coke with no ice.
Again, you were probably used to that. Again, we're going to go back to the 11 siblings, you had a ration table.
It was a ration table, yeah. So it even though it was professional and you had a blast and you traveled and did everything, it was on the lower end of the NASL at that time. And I think but again, we were very competitive. We made it to the Final Four that year. And then from there, they sold me. They needed money and they were getting rid of some players. And I guess I had a value after playing 2 years and starting 2 years. And so the team up in Washington, D.C. bought me from the Lancers. And then I'm owned by Sonny Werblin in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
So now you've gone from, owners that were doing it for the love of the game to Sonny Werblin, Madison Square Garden, that have unlimited amount of money.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Sonny and MSG because the foundation of that show I'm talking about, the first 5 episodes are about Jim Dolan, who took over later for Sonny and owns MSG now. So when you go from Rochester to D.C., and then you bounce around a couple times because teams kept folding.
Right, the Washington team, and again, that's where Cruyff was. I mean, Cruyff came, and Sonny Werblin and Madison Square Garden, I think, were going to make the Diplomats in 1980, when Cruyff came, a powerhouse like the Cosmos. They bought Cruyff. They bought, Vin Janssen, which was the center back for the Netherlands at that time.
Right.
They bought a player, Juan Lozano, who was fabulous, but an Argentinian player and then they just built a great team. And to this day, we don't know the whole story, but Sonny Werblin did not like what the NASL was doing, and then how they were going to proceed, with the league. So after the 80 season, he just says, I quit. He didn't sell the team. He just folded the team. And at that point, we went into an expansion draft, and my old buddy Terry Hansen, the guy from St. Louis and general manager, he was actually in Washington as a general manager, but as soon as I got there, he was gone. He left right away. He was in Atlanta. So he got me down in Atlanta, and the owner down there was Ted Turner.
Oh, jeez.
So we had some fun, and Ted Turner came into the locker rooms a couple times and was drinking his Suddy Cart, or what was it, the
Cuddy Sark.
Cuddy Sark, yeah.
So you go from My Cousin Vinny in Rochester to Madison Square Garden to CNN.
CNN, right before CNN got big, yep.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like the more we do this show, and the more that we talk to gentlemen like yourself that walk among us here in the 314. I'm always intrigued. I'm becoming more intrigued by kind of the culture and kind of your own memories, because and I'm going to go back in time on our conversation a little bit. Those SLU years, when you think about your teammates, the successes that you guys had, the names of the players, and then their pathways. Because, when we hear you tell these stories of being drafted and playing, then going to DC and playing against George Best and Cruyff, you're not the only one. And more importantly, more amazingly to me, so many of your teammates, so many of your neighborhood parish competitors did the same thing. What does that mean to you? Does that resonate differently as you look back, as the game is blowing up the way that it is?
I think back then, St. Louis was a powerhouse. No matter if it was St. Louis University, SLU, anywhere that even in grade school and high school, we could play. We played together. We played as a team. And you look back, I think I learned more from the guys down at St. Louis University as players, because they were so much better as you were freshmen and they were seniors, than I did from anywhere. And those guys they were my idols at that time, because there was no soccer on TV.
Right.
There was no
right.
A little closer.
There was none of that. So we couldn't watch somebody make a move these days. Messi, the other. You didn't see any of that. You didn't, unless you were one of the guys that watched the weekly, show on. I forget who the hell had it, but. That was it. So you never saw anybody to learn the moves or do anything. You learned from the guys that you grew up with. So we were surrounded, whether it was grade school with CYC players, because we started so young at second grade or first grade, and played it the whole time. I believe still that we were a step ahead. When I went into the NASL in '77, today before I came down here, I was going back just to see how many players there were. 40 players from St. Louis in 76, 77, 78 that I could count that played in the NASL.
Wow.
St. Louis.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. Like, this is the thing about our pedigree, our history with the game, relationship with the game, our love of the game, and we look at other parts of the country and the debates that occur in regards to, soccer capitals, et cetera. And we talked about Kansas City a little earlier, right? Mm-hmm. And early in the season, I couldn't not. I don't think I could bash them enough at that time.
No, it was pretty
regular.
Pretty regular.
And then I gave them a break for a number of episodes, and now I'm back at it, because the more I meet gentlemen like yourself and talk to guys like Joe Clark and everyone else, it's like it gets me fired up, because what you guys did at that time is really a huge foundational component of why we continue to thrive.
But there's something else that I think is really important about you specifically, Don, which is back then there was a rule around 3, right? You had to have 3 Americans.
2 to begin with.
Yeah, 2 when it started. Eventually got to 3. But I think you still hold the record for the most games by an American in the NASL, which meant that
as a defender, American defender.
Either way.
As games played.
That's insane, because think about all the different players that came across from Europe, from South America, and the ones that came from St. Louis. And the guy sitting here has the most minutes played from a defender from the United States in that league at that time, and that's including those 40 guys you mentioned. That it just, and it's not. I'm not trying to blow smoke up your butt. It's more about the fact that the generational focus on soccer in St. Louis is, I think, what separates us. And then you tack on CYC, where the development started, and the parish concept, and then as the diaspora of St. Louis spread out into the county and into St. Charles County and south, I think it just kind of carried forward, and that's why you still see these
which
things.
brings me to a question. Back to the NASL days when there were 40 plus of your brethren all over the league. How much fun was it? Because there probably wasn't a team that you played where there was not a St. Louis presence on the other bench or whatever. What was that like?
Again, depends on what team you're with and where you're traveling to.
Sure.
So in Rochester, again, God loved Bob Popovich. He gave me a chance to play. He gave me a start in my career and whatever. But he was a tough guy. You didn't do anything. He's a sort of a dictator.
Yeah.
And you couldn't do anything. You couldn't go out. He had rules.
Shep Messing talked a little bit about that on the 72 Olympic team.
Yeah.
Pops had a key to your room, and he'd come in the middle of the night to make sure that you're still there.
That sounds more like Dick than Tater.
And that's the way he ruled things. And again, you couldn't do anything about it. If you didn't like it, you were gone and your career was over with.
Yeah.
But then going to Madison Square Garden, owned by the next year, I'm out and I come up with Joey Clark. He said you had him last night. We'd go down, we're out in San Diego with those guys. I'd call them over for dinner and, sign the tab and give a good tip. We just signed for things back then. So I mean, what a change but you were right. Anywhere that you went, there were St. Louis players. You go to Dallas, you had Petcher and Bellinger and some of these guys. You go to Danny Counts was with a bunch of teams, and Bob Mattis, all those guys in St. Louis. There were. Anywhere you went, there were St. Louis players. That's who the NASL went to, farther American players.
Yeah.
And there were a number of New Jersey players there with,
Sharks
Messing and Dave DeRico
and just to be clear, there wasn't a Kansas City pipeline that you knew of.
I do not remember any Kansas City player. I think the Kansas City thing came because of the players in St. Louis maybe moving to Kansas City.
Yeah, well, Rockhurst wins all those titles with St. Louis players.
Boys, yeah.
Yes.
Same with Benedictine College. They were all St. Louisans. So soccer capital. I don't know about anymore. Maybe it is, depending on who's making what. But back when I played, it was all St. Louis.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I had somebody debating me that the other day, like, oh, well, that's just a historical reference. And I'm like, well, so is Washington, D.C., because Silicon Valley is technically more important than D.C. That kind of train of thought where it all has to start somewhere. And I think it's undeniable, especially given that the NASL was legitimately the first real pro league on a global scale.
100%.
Yeah.
And you go back to that. I remember being on the field. I think it was in Fort Lauderdale, and I think I was having a good game. And I believe I was with Washington at that time, and I made a play. And one of the foreign big defenders came up and he says, "Great play." He says, "Where are you from? St. Louis?" I mean, that was the mentality of the players. If there was an American out there, he was probably from St. Louis playing.
Well, and Mike Sorber said that too. He went to Mexico and had significant success down there, and people looked at him and thought, how in the world could a kid from St. Louis, Missouri, play at the highest league?
Not St. Louis.
Delwood. I'm sorry. Yeah. I was being a little more geographically open.
I'm going to update his wiki page, by the way.
Yeah. But we keep hearing that kind of same story. And I guess we always ask what you think it is, and we've heard grit. We hear the competition side of it. We beat each other up in the playground or at the Droege backyard.
I think it was. It was competition. It was pride. I mean, to this day, being from St. Louis and being a soccer player, I'm always pushing St. Louis and soccer player. I usually wear my city hat out, these days, and if I see somebody with a a logo, city shirt on. And I said, what got you into it? Because a lot of these fans are different now. They're not the older guys.
No.
It's
They
a young
found it through
crowd.
Instagram.
And it's like, I don't know. My boyfriend got me into it, and I love it and all that. And I make a conversation just to find out how they got into it. And it's a completely different crowd.
I have a quick question. I want to wrap up a question in regards to the NASL years, and then we're going to take a quick break for some refills here at the beloved
Amsterdam Tavern.
And by the way, have you ever been to a better soccer pub than Amsterdam?
I know, it's
Tavern?
awesome, isn't it? It is really cool.
Yeah.
Here's my question. We mentioned the names earlier. We mentioned it in the intro, the names that you played against, and you jokingly and modestly state that you're only in the photos because you were the defender and the offensive players were the cool kids, right? The Peles and the Cruyffs,
The ones making the money.
Yeah, the ones making the big money.
But we're still buying the drinks.
Yeah, exactly. So I just kind of a softball question to you. All those years, all those teams, and all those just mega names that were on the field. Who was the one? Who was the one that when you played against or played with, that when you walked out there, you were like, holy shit, that is blank. That just kind of like checked the box for you.
It's hard to say if there's a one because on the Cosmos you had Pele. So who in their life growing up did not hear of Pele?
Yeah.
Pele's a word that, it's the old saying, I won't say the other words, but it's world renowned that if you say Pele anywhere in the world, they know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
And there was nobody else like that. And to this day, and now it's a little bit maybe different with Messi coming, that Pele made, in my opinion, the NASL and soccer in the United States. When he came in 1975, the games were at Randall's Island, and they had 3,000 people or something. He comes, they got 10,000 people. They're painting the field. I think the following year, we're playing at the Meadowlands with 75,000 people. I mean, that's an impact, and that got people to come. It made the league, but then it brought all these other great players. And it broke it too because it was the gate that kept you afloat. There was no TV contracts. There was none of that.
So my part B to that question is, Pele was the name. That was the aha player. Who was the toughest? Who was the badass? Because as a defender, who just kind of like, you were like, oh shit, here he comes.
Well, my one would be Stevie Hunt of the Cosmos. Now, I always guarded Canaglia, but Canaglia was my size. So I liked guarding the guys that were my size, even though he scored, I don't know how many goals on me. But it was,
we weren't going to talk about that.
He scored on everyone. And that's what I've been told, he scored on everybody. But Stevie Hunt, because he was just, in Rochester, I was playing a wing back. He was just too quick and left-footed, and you couldn't stop him. And then a lot of people had that same thing. But as a center back, I think Canaglia was probably the biggest and hardest. And he was the leading scorer in the league.
That's awesome.
Ricardo Alonso was another one from Jacksonville. But Cruyff, he probably was the best player that I played with. I mean, he changed the game when he came to Washington, D.C. and started playing.
I think he changed the game
globally.
Period.
He played, before that. But when he came to D.C., you've never seen somebody run straight forward and be able to, zig and zag and never, he wouldn't slow down. I mean, I was with him.
That's awesome.
Goal of the year in 1980 I was on the field when he did that in D.C. and he was tremendous. There was nobody better at that time, in my opinion.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to get some refills, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk probably a little bit more about soccer. Might need to talk about your brother playing for the Cubs too, because that's just not sitting well right now. So thank you for joining us. We'll be right back after the break. Zach, you good over there?
I'm good, buddy.
All right. We'll see you guys in a second. Crescent Plumbing Supply helps save marriages. Really, as families grow, kitchen and bath needs change rapidly. Designing and choosing the right fixtures takes way more skill than just scrolling Pinterest. Staying on budget and avoiding those foreign language order sheets, that's not easy. Lucky for you, the local team at Crescent Plumbing Supply, they are experts.
They can help you ditch the baby's tub for a teenage shower and upsize that kitchen sink for all those tumblers, rosé glasses, and sports water bottles. So, when you're ready for that kitchen or bath makeover, go to crescentsupply.com. That's crescentsupply.com. It's cheaper than a therapist.
Ripple.
Yeah, you stumped me on this one.
Don, are you a music fan?
I am not. I couldn't tell you.
No?
I'm a fan, but not. I couldn't tell you who this is.
When you're in your car and just kind of cruising, are you talk radio or?
I'm on the phone.
He's wheeling and dealing.
Yeah.
Singing to yourself. Like, hey, Don, how you doing? We're back. We got some refills here at the illustrious Amsterdam Tavern.
That's right.
Zach, you brought back a couple of these fine, chilled, cold ones, yellow ones.
I think Wally's is going to owe us something because this is the second time we promoted them on the show. The first was with Josh Allen.
Yes.
Because Josh Allen from Companion Bakery does all the buns for the sandwiches that are to go at Wally's.
Yeah, and if you think about it, like, without bread, it's just meat.
It's right. It's no
so
longer a
with
sandwich.
him, there is a sandwich.
That's right. And then, John Shine has talked about his relationship with going to Wally's after leaving Soccer Park.
Yes.
And how he struck up a deal with them to design and brew a beer for them. And now we're drinking it, and it's delicious. It is your style of beer, as you mentioned earlier, which is cold and yellow.
There's a million things I love about this beer, to be honest with you. Number one is color. It is just simply yellow.
Yep.
2,
Pale
it's
yellow.
cold.
Yep.
Thank you, Amsterdam, for paying the power bill.
Yep.
3, it's in a 12-ounce can.
Yeah.
I don't
And
need
it's a cool
16. I don't need 20. I don't need those big 2x4s that all the cool kids want. Just give me 12 ounces.
Yeah,
And it's probably free.
It will be after they hear this episode.
Yeah, no, but I do want to. I want to get back to Don very quickly, but this brought me back to last week when we were traveling through Tennessee, the Smoky Mountains. We stopped at Buc-ee's in Crossville, Tennessee, and let me tell you, don't do it.
Ooh, why?
Don't go in there.
Do they not have companion bread or Wally's lagers?
No, they don't.
Okay.
It smells like beef jerky and fish.
Fish? Okay.
It's not a pleasant experience. Wally's, you walk in like, wow, this is cool. It's nice. It's clean. There's a lot of people,
I can beat that, though.
but it feels like you're in a nice place. Buc-ee's is gross.
I can beat that. On my
Sorry.
vacation between the marina that we went on the charter out of, which is beautiful. Beautiful boat.
Yeah, I saw the pictures.
There's one convenience store between that and the place we stayed at.
Sure.
In Beaufort, North Carolina, in the marsh part of the Outer Banks.
Okay. Great people.
That smell that you
Watching.
described in Tennessee, the smell in North Carolina was worse.
Oh, yeah.
So suffice to say, we had toast for dinner.
Sorry for that diversion, Don, but I wanted to ask you something coming back from the break, which is you are a member of the St. Louis Soccer Hall of Fame. You're a member of the St. Louis University Hall of Fame. You're also a member of the St. Louis Athletic Hall of Fame. But you were inducted...
And CBC.
And CBC Hall of Fame. You were inducted the same in St. Louis Soccer Hall of Fame the same night as Lori Kolupny. And I got to watch that video of the two of you. And the reason I bring that up is because apropos to the fact that we're watching the Women's World Cup, and JB and I were going on about how the U.S. women's team is not suffering, but they're starting to see that the competition is catching up. And so we talked about how that's been interesting to see that the young women from across the world are coming to the United States to train, go to college, and play. And so the U.S. is that destination for the women's game for some. I mean, Europe is catching up. There's a lot of really great women's leagues over in Europe. But I would love to hear your perspective on that, coming from when you came out in the 70s and the NASL was the first real league. Everybody was focused on Europe and South America. So can you talk about that transformation a little bit over the last 40 years of not just the men's game, but kind of the women's, and how it kind of is caught up to the Women's World Cup?
It's sort of it's different that, like, back then it was the guys going to Europe, and still is that way when you were trying to make it big, and there wasn't a whole lot of people or players that could and would go over and spend time on a European team, and you had to have that connection with a coach or something to get over there. Whereas the women now it's the opposite of they're coming here and training with us. I think the women's game is tremendous. There's a lot of controversy right now with everything they do, and I just stay away from that and watch them play and just everybody makes a big deal out of little things.
Yeah, isn't it amazing that you'll get an hour's worth of post-game analysis that is centered around a minute and a half of a perceived slide when you have a 90-minute game in which that's where the goals are scored and not scored?
That's what they should be talking about. They're talking about the national. I mean, being on the national team, it was wonderful when you were away from the United States and the national anthem came on, and wherever you were playing, you got chills. I don't think I ever sang it, but I was singing it to myself.
Sure.
So just because you couldn't see these girls' mouth, it didn't mean that they didn't have their heart in it. And again, I don't know what's behind all of it, but it's a thrill to have that when you're traveling away and you've been away and it comes on, and it's fabulous.
So let's kind of talk about the today a little bit more. We're going to add on to this, and right here in our own backyard, we've been blessed with the newest team in the MLS, and that is St. Louis City SC. Obviously, going into the season, there was little expectation across the board from all the pundits, all the pros. And even for those of us that are kind of near and dear to the game here, there was a lot of question marks, I believe, in all of our heads. But here we are on the All-Star break, MLS All-Star break. Leagues Cup is going on. We're sitting top of the division. Clearly, you've been following it. You've got your merch. Are you a season ticket holder as well?
I am a season ticket holder.
Okay, so you've been there. You've seen the environment. What's your gut take out of the gate? Here we are. 4 months in, roughly 4 months in. What do you think of the team today?
Well, the organization to begin with, I think, did a wonderful job with that stadium, and everything in that stadium is fabulous. It's a showcase just to go down there and see the event go on. I have one complaint about it by going down there. There were no programs. You don't know who the players are. Yeah. You don't know anything. And, you turn to your buddy and say, who just scored that goal? They give nothing out. I was going to go down and just do one sheet of paper and put the teams on and sell them for $1. I'd make a fortune. That I think is something that they're missing, that if they want to follow more of a following and you want to know your players and you want to make an impact in the community and even for the other teams coming in, I don't know who they're playing. Or I know where we're playing, but I don't know the players.
I never thought of that, actually.
Neither.
I mean, every other major sport in the world.
Everything. And even I think the other other teams do it.
They are giving out, the last couple of games, they've given out those, it's like a trifold deal.
There's only the team doesn't say where they're from.
Right.
It's just the city team.
Yeah.
They don't say where they're from or
Jeremy Tripp
anything.
would say we got to download the app.
Let's hit them up.
You would love.
I think so.
You would love to find out where they're from, and maybe their stats or anything. It's.
I think the app, the St. Louis City app, has a lot of that, but
you can't get on it because there's too many people down there.
So I think they do need to have an alternative for just understanding, and I think the Cardinals games, you buy them. You can buy those.
Even if you paid a couple bucks for them,
right.
I want to know who's doing
exactly.
What, so that's the only thing. I think they've done a great job with the team. I think they have a goal, they have a mission, and I think the players are following that.
As a center back through your whole career, when you look at Tim Parker in particular and what he's done with the team, I don't know if you've done any little bit of homework on his own path, because he's not late in the tooth. He's 26, 27, I believe.
Somewhere in there, yeah.
So he's been a little, not a journeyman, but a little bit of a journeyman.
Been around a couple places.
As on a an expansion young team where it was clearly built up the spine. You know, Berkey first, you know, Parker, Leuven, and then Klaus up top. What's your take on Parker as a modern day center back in the MLS, playing in this high press system?
I like the way he plays. He doesn't do more than he can do. I think he does his job. He gives the ball up. He does everything right. He chases down. So I like the way he plays. And
he's pretty good in the air too.
He's very good in the air. You know, so he's a tough defender. I think he's a big guy to where he's probably, you know, puts some fear in God in the players that are playing against him. And if he can whack him, he'll whack him. But I think he's a great player, and he does his own thing. I had a coach one time, Gordon Bradley. He was a great coach up in Washington, D.C. And his theory was singers can't be dancers and dancers can't be singers. Do what you do best.
Yeah,
somebody will recognize you. You'll do your job.
Yep.
So there were so many players that tried to do, and it probably still happens, more than they could do.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to beat that last guy, or they wanted to do that. But if you do what you're supposed to do and give the ball off to who you're supposed to, and you did your job, you're a great player, I think. And I think Tim Parker is that. He doesn't do more than he can do, and he does his job, what he's supposed to do, very well.
His picks are some of my favorite. Watching him just take the ball away from a rock-solid striker, coming down the wing.
You know, watching him now for as long as we have, and really kind of paying attention to the nuances to certain positional players, because look, no offense to wingers, me personally, hey, have pace, good on you. I'm looking at the 6, I'm looking at the 10, I'm looking at the center backs, you know, because of that kind of quarterback mantra or responsibility. The thing I like about him is even at 26, 27, I'll compare and contrast him currently in today's marketplace. Tim Ream, who has roughly 10 years on him, he seems like he's getting smart by the game in his anticipation, in his reaction, in his distribution.
And his knowledge, you know, he knows who the players are playing now, and he knows how to play them. They have a game plan, and I think they're, again, not just Parker, but the whole team does. And their game plan, you know, if they lose the ball, they get it back right away.
Yeah.
Well,
and if you guys ever
big part.
broke it down to where how many goals and I haven't done the complete breakdown, but any goals that they've scored because of mistakes or that losing balls or free kicks or
pretty high.
own goals, it's incredible what they've done.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you know, the incredible thing is leading the lead in goal differential kind of by a lot. You know, I think they're a +3 over the next closest, and then if you look at the median within the league, they're +10, if not +12, over the rest of the league.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. I think that says way more about our defensive prowess. And let me ask your opinion of Berkey. Is there a better goalie in the league right now?
I have not seen one. I mean, he's kept those guys in the games. He's won a number of games for them. For me, he's the best keeper that I've seen in the league, and he's consistent all the time. He doesn't make mistakes.
Yeah.
You know, when the goals that are scored on him, you know, they got to give him more power to it because nobody's going to stop him, and he's that good.
Let me throw you guys a hypothetical here, because now we're in the age of Messi, right? Messi is now the Pele to to the league. Let me give you a scenario and just let me get your take here. If Messi drives Miami to a playoff slot and they make it to the semis versus Berkey taking us in the West all the way to the top, and let's say we happen to win it all. MVP vote. How do you think it'll go nationally? Do you think Berkey deservedly wins it? Or do you think Messi, because of the Messi factor, even though they don't win it?
I mean, Messi's going to draw if it's a popular vote.
Yeah, it can't be popular vote. I'm saying like soccer people, if you're really looking at it, do you think the majority of soccer people will be cognizant of the reality of the situation, or is it just the goal?
Well, I think it depends on what Messi does the rest of the year.
Yeah.
He's got a long ways to go. And so does Berkey. I mean,
Yeah.
not or St. Louis, the city team. I mean, they're doing terrific now, but you don't know here after.
It's hot.
It's a different story
You know
coming
what
up. But Messi or Berkey is not going to change.
Right.
Berkey's going to be Berkey, and he's that good. Whether the team's going to do that good and they're going to continue to win and score goals and do what they do. Some of these teams are now second time around playing them. They might have a different attitude and different game plan on playing against the St. Louis team.
I think the second half is going to really expose.
But don't you love the reality of the situation in so much that everybody's always looking to kind of make excuses for us or give us, look for where's our Achilles heel, beyond being an expansion team. And the biggest one was, well, what are you going to do whenever your big guys go down? Well, guess what?
We've answered that.
They've been down.
Yeah.
Right.
And now they're coming back. And one of them, Nielsen in particular, he
never
hasn't
seen him
even stepped
play.
on the field.
No.
Yeah.
So, I mean, does that given the position that you're in and your knowledge of the game, your love of the team, does that excite you too? I mean,
Yeah, it's a great position for the city team to be in to have these players coming back. Then who are you going to sit? Who's
Yeah.
going to be unhappy with?
Well, and you have Torriesen coming in too from Iceland, so that's going to have an impact, and he's more of a winger.
pronounce that again.
Torriesen.
Did you Google that?
I
you
did. Yeah, I do. I could be off because it's been a while, but it looks like.
Can we just call him Thor?
I would love to. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that would be great, and I think it'd be a cool nickname, and I think we'll just pick it up anyway. And he probably already has that as a nickname, but
The great thing though about Messi you're talking about is I really think, and you could tell that he's enjoying what he's doing. My Lord, when he's scoring those, you can see it in his face, running to his family, and then he scores 2 goals. He's here to win it. He's here to make an impact.
I saw a video. I saw a camera angle. I believe it was cell phone. It was on Twitter of his first goal the other night. That kind of breakaway off the post back to himself. Did you notice what he did? The angle was the individual was behind the goal, going to the right of the goal. Because that's kind of where he peeled off and was going back. And it was right after the group had been giving him the hugs and high fives, and they take off. He's by himself. Did you see what he did to Beckham? He stood there and did one of those kind of like Usain Bolt, like giving a little wave, and you see Beckham just with this grin. To me, like, I don't know why, I was almost like a little kid. Like, oh, look at that!
But you know what?
It was inspiring to me.
It was inspiring. I mentioned this in the last episode that I watched Messi in Barca, and this was 2016, so 7 years ago, and he was in that prototypical Messi mode where he ran when he wanted to, and he did what he needed to do, and they won the game 1-0. In the 2 games I've watched him with Miami, he's doing everything, and I'll tell you, I think what's the spark. Busquets. Talking about somebody who is calm on the ball, who doesn't have pace. I mean, you could blow right past Busquets, but he gets the ball in the middle of the field in that 6th spot.
Yeah.
It's on.
He reminds. I saw that Jordan and Tom Brady were playing basketball on the beach a couple of weeks ago, and it was on social media, right?
I didn't see it.
And
but.
Jordan, even at his age and his physique, etc., because he clearly is not NBA worthy right now, but he's just dicking around, throwing the ball from wherever. Too easy. That's what Busquets reminds me.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. He's going to do it. So my question to you is, before we continue to stay off the rails, having played in the NASL with those players, the Peles and Cruyffs, et cetera, and everybody that came in, and now watching MLS, what are we, 27, 28 years into it, and now we're really seeing the Messi names, et cetera, coming in, because there's been big names prior, but they're starting to come in a little bit closer to prime, not significantly past prime. Do you see a compare and contrast there? Is MLS doing it right in your opinion? Because the numbers are to be determined. But do you think they learned enough from what happened in the NASL with those players? Are they hedging their bets better this time around?
I think so. I mean, and the thing about it too, the NASL lived by the gate. there was no TV contracts. These guys have TV contracts. They have sponsors with Adidas and Apple and what have you. So they have money behind them and obviously a lot of money because they are signing these players.
Massive.
And they could not be doing it by the gate because most of the stadiums are 25,000 people, if that. So that could not support Messi's salary. If it was the old days of Pele. Pele was because of Warner Brothers. They wanted Pele because they could get into any country and do a movie or do whatever, get him into there, and he had, he was the card that could do that.
Wow.
And the draw. So, I mean, they had, Robert Redford and Sophia. They had people go to these games.
Sylvester Stallone, Victory.
They had, but they had but nowadays, I think there's shared revenue, obviously, with the MLS. They have money. They have a lot of things to be able to afford these players, and I think they'll do it right. I think most of these stadiums, you guys probably know better. A lot of them sell out all the time, don't they? I mean,
a lot of them. There are some stadiums and there are some teams that are still kind of bottom, like the Rapids. I think has a struggle. Getting folks out.
Well, it's funny. Like Columbus is another one. I think they do okay on attendance, but what it is the early iterations of those stadiums were really kind of glorified college pitches. The new
soccer-specific stadiums.
Yeah, the New
Cincinnati.
York, L.A.
Well,
St.
the
Louis,
timing
obviously.
is perfect, too. I mean, you just had the World Cup. Messi wins the World Cup.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody that is a soccer player and even not a soccer player was watching the World Cup. And now you got the best player in the world coming over here, and, it was perfect timing for that. And I don't know if you put a Messi in Colorado if that would have worked like that. I don't think it would have. It wouldn't have. They would have had an impact, but not that much.
Not that
When
much.
we were in D.C. and Cruyff came, they knew he was going to do things. I think we averaged 12,000 people when he came. They averaged 22,000 people, and then they just folded the team because they didn't like the way the NASL was going. So, but, now there are so many people that know the game better and are part of the game as opposed to back in the NASL days.
I want to go in a different direction if we can for a minute, because we've had a lot of folks from the NASL days or the Steamers days, and some of them have gone on to be coaches. Some have gone on to be teachers like Gerd Muller. But you chose a different path. And I would love for you to kind of just talk about what you've done post-soccer for a little bit. I mean, you don't have to go in the weeds, but I think that's also part of your story, which is, yeah, you played the highest level with Cruyff and Pele and all these guys, but then you retired in the 80s, and you've been doing something completely different. You've been a star at that as well. So can you kind of let folks know who you were post-soccer as well?
Well, I really didn't retire. I was asked to leave. The new coach had other ideas in bringing somebody else in. So, but I was fine with that. And right off the bat, I got into the mortgage industry.
Yeah.
And I was a mortgage loan officer, and I still am, for the last 37 years. So it's been a great business. It's a lot of freedom because you do a lot on your own. Nowadays, you work from home. And it's been terrific for me. And it was nice to get into that business out of soccer because you made more money in this business than you did ever playing soccer. So it worked really well for me.
Yeah, but the underwriters are nowhere near as good looking as the cheerleaders back in the day.
Well, I'd have to say no comment on that too, but
well, that'll be part 2.
Yeah, part 2. Mm-hmm.
So the only other thing I was going to ask about, and this is kind of getting back into those days, is we've heard a couple different stories from folks about frozen buses and beer in
trash
bins,
ice bins,
and in ice baths and trash bins. Do you have any of those kind of stories on your travels throughout? I mean, you said you had to live with a family up in Rochester for a while, and then you went to Atlanta or to DC, then to Atlanta, and you went to all over the place. Do you keep any of those kind of fun stories?
I mean, before you even go to the NASL, when at St. Louis University, when we'd play in Quincy or somewhere like that, and we'd win. Back then, Harry Keogh and Val Pellizzero and Miguel, we would get trash cans and they would be full with beer for the trip on the way home. And that was that was okay to do back then.
Wait,
They weren't breaking any rules.
Yeah, that's
or
statute
doing
of
it. That was-
limitations on underage. That's all good.
And that was it was about getting a team together after victory and singing and doing all the other stuff. And it was terrific. And NASL, I don't know. I'm sure other people had better. I'd have to think and see what stories are out there, that can be told. And
Did we mention this is a rated R show? So you're fine.
I remember, again, what people think in the Cruyff days. Gordon Bradley, the coach back then. It was before a national televised game, and this is nothing. It just came to my mind. And he was talking to me before the game, and he was like, tell me what to do and whatever. And he'd look under the shower stalls to see if Cruyff was in there. Because, he was afraid. Cruyff was sort of running I don't want to say 100% running the team, but it seemed it was getting there. You had a number of Dutch players now. You had these other guys coming in. And I think Gordon's job was probably on the line if that was the case. And Gordon was a wonderful coach, wonderful guy. It was just a different, what Medicine scored. Gordon wanted to do the thing. So sort of funny that I think Cruyff sort of made the lineup, even though Gordon had agreed with it. I was just lucky that he liked me. So a lot of, in all of that, there's a lot of luck involved. If somebody gives you a chance and you do a good job, then terrific. But there are a lot of players that didn't get that chance, that should have got that chance, and go from there. I mean, I'd love to have seen Don Ebert play outdoor soccer. Daryl Duran, come on, Daryl, one of the best players ever to come out of St. Louis, but he had a foot problem. And
are you just saying that because he's a CBC alum?
No, that guy, because I played with him on the steamers there, and that was a wonderful time also. I mean, to play with 19,000 people when I was towards the end of the steamer years, but it was just a thrill. You always rooted for him, even though I was playing against him. I was playing with Chicago Horizon at that. It was a one-hit wonder team. For 1 year they lasted, but we were in the same league and everything. And when we weren't playing the Steamers, I was hoping that they would win. It was a St. Louis thing, and it always has been a St. Louis thing. And you're always and still are rooting for anybody from St. Louis.
I love it.
Well, I don't see that ending anytime soon either. I think that gentlemen like yourself and your peers, teammates, ex-teammates, and these stories are it's inspiring because I know for a fact my own son, he won't admit it, but I know he's listening to these stories and their buddies are, because they're part of the next gen of St. Louis players. So I just want to thank you for coming on, sharing the stories, because it's really inspiring to really understand why this all is such a big deal here, and you're a big part of that.
And you go back to the Kansas City, who's the hub of soccer? Some of these things that I brought in to show you guys too is that, I mean, in the 79 team or 78 team, there were 7 of us from St. Louis on the United States national team.
Yeah.
So what did the league and what did the coaches? Welch was the coach at that time. They thought a lot about the players from St. Louis, and to be able to do that and have that time with Al Trost and Jim Pollahan and Petcher and Greg Villa and Bursick and Hulser, and you can name on, and then you had that crew before us with the Madisons and Series and Demlings and whatever. It's never ending. It really is, and hopefully it won't. Hopefully that St. Louis continues to that path.
Well, I mean, I think when you look at players like a Josh Sargent and Tim Ream and, the next gen, the Miggies and the Caden Glovers and, there's a wave. It's almost like, it's like a sunset sunrise here in St. Louis. The tides are always going to rise, right? It's just a matter of time. So thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. We're going to check out this photo album here too before we leave today. Zach, you good?
I'm good, man. Don, this has been great, and I was excited to have you on, and you were the first real soccer legend I met when I moved back to St. Louis, and so to have you on our show is a privilege.
I thought you met Jared.
No, I met Don before I met Jared. Sorry.
I really appreciate you guys, and it's been a pleasure doing this, and there were a lot of players just like me. As I said, there were 40 of us that within a couple years playing in the NASL, and just a big
Well,
coup to St. Louis.
I tell you what, let's give a shout out to Bill Luby.
Bill Luby, what a great guy.
He has been like, he's our booking agent. Like, he listens to the shows. He's been great, constant name dropping. His Rolodex is pretty impressive, by the way.
Well, he knows more about soccer than we do. There's no doubt about it.
I think we're going to have to bring Bill on and let him kind of give us the secret sauce, too.
Right.
Well, I tell you what, are you going to the game tonight, by the way?
I am not. I don't have tickets tonight. But when I pulled up here, it's 102.
It's going to be sticky.
Do you notice they're like texting out, here's your water stations?
Yeah, they're giving out free cups tonight.
Oh, free? No, it's not really free. I'll show you my season ticket, Bill.
For those that paid to get in, will have free access to cups to get water.
Well,
not that that's going to help anybody, because by the time you hear this...
Thank you, Carolyn.
Yeah, it'll
We
be over.
appreciate that.
yeah, this will be over by the time that happens.
Yeah.
There we go. Exactly. We're out of here. Thank you for listening. Again, those 3 little clicks. Pick an episode, pick a friend, send it to them. We would be immensely appreciative. Chris and Bill, the Pinnacle Loans Group, you guys, thank you again for your support. Crescent Plumbing, thank you. Continue helping save marriages across America. Keep families on budget whenever they renovate their kitchen. And Don, enjoy your evening.
Thank you, JB. Thanks,
Thank you so
Zach.
much, Don.
Really appreciate it.
And we are on our way out.
Howdy.